The fire pops once, slow and sharp, and the smell of pine resin rides the heat like an old memory. A hot mug warms the hands, but the cabin never really warms the instincts. Not after everything. Here's the thing, brothers. Leaving the battlefield doesn't mean the war ends. Sometimes the quiet is the most dangerous sound in the world. Peace can be a costume. Silence can be a trap. And the safe zone people talk about. It's only safe until something decides to test the door. Because in this story, a woman named Lila Henderson drags a half-frozen stranger,
just a little further,
Ethan Cross, a broken former Navy SEAL, into her cabin and keeps Ethan Cross alive. But days later, a truck idles in the trees, headlights sweep the pines, and a doorknob turns like the past has fingers. So tell me, brothers, when the breach comes and the monsters knock, do you run or do you hold the line? Sit down. Stay with me. This one's a lesson in survival and what it really means to be the protector. Snow came down like a curtain over the foothills outside Boulder, Colorado. Wind erased tire tracks in minutes. The cold did not bite. It hunted. Ethan Cross kept moving because stopping meant surrender. The Navy winter coat on his shoulders was stiff with ice. Under it, the red and black plaid flannel clung damply to his chest. His faded jeans were crusted white at the knees. Brown leather boots punched into drifts that climbed higher with every step. Beside him, Ranger stayed close. The German Shepherd was 5 years old, black along the back and tan along the legs and face, ears up like antennas, amber-brown eyes scanning the storm. A black service dog vest hugged his frame, the patch clear even through the blowing snow. Ethan's left knee did what it always did when weather turned mean. It locked, then burned, then forced him into a careful limp. He hated that limp. Not for pride, for what it meant. There had been a time when he could carry a man twice his size and never breathe hard. Now the mountain wind made him feel older than 40. Ranger paused. Not a bark. Not a whine. Just a sudden stillness, muscles coiled, nose tilted toward the pines. Ethan followed the dog's gaze and squinted into the white. At first he saw nothing but snow and shadow. Then the storm shifted and showed him a shape near the tree line. A cabin. Small. Smoke, thin as a thread, curling from a chimney. Ethan's throat tightened with relief and something close to disbelief. Warmth meant time. Time meant choices. He took one step, then another. His knee gave a sharp warning. He gritted his teeth and kept going. Halfway there, the world tilted. It happened fast. A wave of dizziness, a hollow thud in his ears. His vision narrowed as if someone had pulled the edges inward. He tried to catch himself, but his left leg betrayed him. He went down into the snow on one side, hard enough to knock the breath from his lungs. Ranger spun back instantly, pressing close, a quiet pressure at Ethan's shoulder like an old promise. "Easy," Ethan whispered, though he could not tell if he was talking to the dog or to himself. His fingers found the front of Ranger's vest, not to pull, just to stay connected. Then his hand slipped to his own shoulder, where fabric felt wrong, sticky, stiff. When he lifted his fingers, he saw a thin, dark smear against the snow. Not a wound that would kill him fast, just enough to weaken him slow. A service dog could not carry a man, not physically. But Ranger did what he was trained to do. He held position, body between Ethan and the open woods, eyes up, listening. Then he let out a single bark, sharp and controlled, aimed toward the cabin. A door opened. A woman stepped out, half hidden in the swirl of white. She stood there for a beat, reading the storm like someone who had lived with it long enough to know when it was lying. Her name was Lila Henderson. She was 32, built lean and strong from a life that demanded work with her hands. Chestnut brown hair was pulled into a low tie that the wind kept trying to steal. Her eyes were a gray-green that looked calm even when her body tensed for action. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her boots sank deep, steady, and sure. Lila did not rush. That told Ethan something about her. She was brave, yes, but not reckless. A woman who survived alone did not survive by panicking. She moved forward, one careful step at a time, and stopped a few feet away. "Hey," she called, voice firm, not loud. "Don't move fast. Just talk to me." Ethan tried. Air scraped his throat. "Help," he managed. It came out rough, more breath than sound. Ranger shifted slightly but did not lunge. He watched Lila's hands. He watched her eyes. He watched the space between them like a judge. Lila glanced at the vest, then at Ethan's face. Her gaze flicked to his shoulder and back. "You're bleeding," she said, plain and steady. "Not a lot, but enough." Ethan's eyes tried to focus on her, but the storm kept smearing the world. He saw her outline. He saw determination in the way she planted her feet. "I'm Lila," she added, like a handshake offered in the middle of chaos. "I'm going to get you inside. Your dog can come too, okay?" Ethan nodded once. Lila approached Ranger first. She crouched, not low like fear, but low like respect. "Good boy," she said softly. "Stay with him. I'm not here to hurt anyone." Ranger did not wag his tail. He did not soften. But he allowed her closer. That was trust in Ranger language. Lila slid her arms under Ethan's shoulders and tried to lift. He was heavy, and dead weight made heavy feel cruel. "You're built like a barn," she muttered, the smallest edge of humor cutting through the terror. Then her expression tightened with focus. "All right, we're doing this the hard way." She dragged him, inch by inch, through knee-deep snow. Ethan's boots carved small trenches. His head bumped once, and he winced. Ranger stayed pressed to Ethan's side, matching the slow crawl of progress, never leaving the line between Ethan and the woods. By the time Lila reached the porch, her breath came fast, and her gloved hands shook from effort. She shoved the door open with her shoulder and hauled Ethan across the threshold. Warm air hit Ethan's face, and for a second he could almost pretend the world was normal. Lila shut the door and locked it without drama. Then she moved with quick, practiced efficiency. "Fire first," she said, as if giving herself instructions. She shoved fresh logs into a cast-iron stove and coaxed the flames higher, until the cabin brightened and the air began to soften. Ethan lay on a rug, staring up at wooden beams. His eyelids were heavy. His mind kept slipping away like a rope through wet hands. Lila peeled off his navy coat with care. The red and black flannel beneath was soaked and cold. She noticed the way his jaw clenched when she touched his left knee. "You've got an old injury," she observed. Ethan tried to answer. Could not. She set his boots near the stove, then pulled blankets from a trunk and layered them over him. She did not pour boiling water on him. She did not do anything dramatic. She warmed him slowly, the way you bring a frozen thing back without breaking it. Ranger sat at Ethan's head, ears up, eyes on the door. Lila returned with a basin of lukewarm water and a cloth. As she wiped Ethan's hands and face, she spoke in that steady voice again. "Stay with me." I don't care who you are. You're not dying in my cabin. Ethan's eyes found hers. For a moment, even through the fog of cold and blood loss, he saw something he had not expected to see in the middle of nowhere. Not pity, choice. And that frightened him more than the storm. His fingers twitched, trying to move, trying to hold on. Ranger leaned in, warm and solid. Ethan's breath hitched once, then steadied. Lila watched his chest rise and fall, then finally let out a breath she had been holding. She looked at Ranger and spoke like she was admitting a truth to the only witness who mattered. "Whatever dragged you two here," she said quietly, "it's not finished. I can feel that." Outside, the wind slammed against the cabin walls. Inside, the fire crackled louder, like it was trying to argue back. Snow eased into a steady fall, softer now, but the cold stayed mean. The cabin windows frosted over again, as if the mountain wanted to reclaim what it had given up. Ethan came back to the world in pieces. First, the crackle of the stove, then the smell of wet wool drying, then a dull ache in his shoulder that pulsed with every heartbeat. He tried to sit up, and pain tightened around him like a strap. A hand pressed gently to his chest. "Don't," Lila said. "Not yet." Her voice was calm, practical. Not sweet, not harsh. The kind of voice a person uses when they have had to make hard choices alone. Ethan blinked. The room was small, clean in an honest way. Pine boards, a table scarred with use, a few shelves lined with jars and tins. The firelight painted everything in warm amber, but the air still smelled like winter. His eyes shifted and locked on the dog. Ranger sat near the door, ears high, body still, watching as if the storm might try the handle. The German shepherd's black and tan coat looked almost glossy against the cabin's dim light. A service dog vest rested on his back, the patch clear enough to read. Ethan's throat tightened. "Ranger," he rasped. The dog did not move much, but his gaze softened a fraction, like a nod from an old friend. Lila followed Ethan's look. "So you remember him," she said. "That's a start." Ethan tried to speak again and coughed instead. It scraped his throat like sand. Lila lifted a mug and held it near his lips. "Small sips," she said. "Don't be a hero. I've seen heroes make dumb choices." Ethan managed a rough half smile, more in his eyes than his mouth. He took a careful sip. The water was warm, not hot. Thoughtful. Lila noticed him noticing. "You were cold enough to hurt," she said. "Fast heat can shock you. Slow and steady keeps you alive." Ethan stared at her for a beat, measuring. He did not do it to intimidate. It was habit, the kind that follows a man home from dark places. Lila met the look without flinching. She was 32, lean and strong, chestnut hair tied low and a little messy, as if the wind had tried to write its own story into it. Her gray-green eyes held a quiet stubbornness, the kind that did not need to announce itself. "You're safe," she said. "For now." Ethan's mind reached for a name and grabbed only fog. Images came instead. Snow, headlights, a flash of metal, water, black and fast, a weight at his shoulder. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to catch the thread. Nothing. He opened them again and looked at Lila. "Where am I?" "Outside Boulder, foothills." She nodded toward the window. "My cabin. You were down in the snow near the pines. Ranger got my attention." Ethan swallowed. "How long?" "I brought you in last night." Lila paused, watching his face. You went out once, not for long. Fever tried to climb. You fought it. He tried to move his left leg and felt the familiar grind in his knee. The old injury made his body stiff, like a door that never opened all the way anymore. He hated needing time. He hated needing help. Lila seemed to read that too. You've got pride, she said. It's loud. Ethan almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. You talk like you know me. I know your type. Her mouth curved slightly. Quiet, determined. The kind that would rather pass out than ask for a blanket. Ethan's gaze drifted to the navy winter coat hanging near the stove. Under it, his red and black flannel was draped over a chair, still damp at the edges. Faded jeans lay folded, boots set close to the heat. Everything placed with care, not tossed like trash. You did that, he said. I did. Lila picked up a cloth from the basin. You were soaked. I wasn't letting you freeze twice. Ethan shifted his shoulder again, and a sharp pain cut through him. He grunted before he could stop it. Lila's eyes went straight to the spot. Let me see. I'm fine. You're bleeding through my bandage, she said, like she was reading a clock. That's not fine. She pulled the blanket down just enough to check his shoulder. Her hands were steady, not gentle like pity, but careful like competence. The wound was a graze, ugly but not deep. Ethan watched her face as she worked. No fear, no fascination, just focus. Someone shot at you, she said quietly. He did not answer right away. Silence was safer than truth. Lila tied off the fresh bandage. I'm not asking for your life story. I'm asking for the part that keeps my cabin from turning into a grave. Ethan looked toward Ranger. The dog's amber-brown eyes stayed on the door, but his ears angled toward Ethan as if listening for permission. Ethan's voice dropped. No town. Lila leaned back on her heels. Excuse me? No doctor in town. His dark eyes sharpened, not angry, just alert. No one needs to know I'm here. That's not how this works. Lila stood, arms crossing. You nearly died on my floor. You want to stay alive, you get checked. Ethan tried to sit up again and failed halfway. His jaw tightened. He hated weakness, but he hated drawing danger to others even more. He looked at her, and the warmth in his eyes returned, softer now. Please, he said. Not yet. Lila held his gaze, searching for the line between paranoia and instinct. She did not find madness there. She found warning. What are you running from? She asked. Ethan shook his head once. I don't know what I remember. I know what I feel. He nodded toward the window, toward the storm that had gone quiet enough to listen. Someone wanted me dead. If they think I made it, they'll come looking. Lila's face tightened, but she did not step back. And you brought them to my doorstep. Ethan's voice was low. I didn't mean to. Lila stared at him for a long moment. Then she exhaled. Okay, here's the deal. She pointed toward the bed like she was drawing a border on a map. You rest. You eat what I give you. You do not play tough. And if I hear one lie that puts me in danger, I will drag you into town myself. Ethan's eyes held a flicker of respect. Fair. Lila turned to the stove, lifted the lid on a pot, and stirred. The smell of broth filled the room. Ethan watched her for a moment, then asked softly, Why did you help me? Lila did not look back right away. Because you were dying, she said. And because Ranger asked me to. Ranger's ears twitched at his name. Ethan's fingers curled into the blanket. In his mind, the black water surged again. The flash of headlights, the cold, the emptiness after. He forced his voice steady. I'm Ethan Cross. Lila finally looked at him then, and something shifted in her expression, like the name carried weight even if she did not know why. She nodded once, like she was accepting a truth she could not undo. Ethan Cross, she repeated. All right, Ethan. Her tone softened a fraction. Eat, then sleep. Outside, the wind pushed snow against the cabin walls in slow waves. Inside, the fire held its ground. And Ranger remained by the door, silent and watchful, as if he already knew the storm was not the only thing out there. 3 days later, the sky turned a flat steel color, and the wind came back, scraping the pines like claws. Snow did not fall fast. It drifted slow, as if the mountain had all the time in the world. Ethan Cross sat at Lila's table, with his left leg stretched out, testing how much weight it would take before the old knee rebelled. The navy coat hung on a peg near the stove. His red and black flannel was buttoned to the collar, sleeves rolled once, neat and disciplined, even in a stranger's cabin. Faded jeans and brown leather boots completed the picture of a man who lived ready, even when he tried not to. Ranger lay near the door, head on his paws, service dog vest still on, eyes open. The dog did not sleep like most dogs slept. He rested like a guard. Lila stirred oatmeal on the stove, the simple kind that kept a body working. She moved with practiced economy, as if every motion had to earn its place. Her olive coat hung on a chair. She wore a cream sweater with the cuffs pushed up and dark jeans tucked into snow boots. A thin scratch ran along the back of her hand, fresh from hauling firewood. You look better, she said, sliding a bowl toward Ethan. That's the good news. Ethan took the spoon. His hands were calloused, the kind that came from work and training. What's the bad news? Lila nodded toward the window. Weather. And you. She said it without cruelty, just truth. Ethan looked out at the whiteness pressing against the glass. He had learned long ago that storms were honest. People were not. He ate a few bites, then set the spoon down. You shouldn't be alone out here. Lila arched an eyebrow. That's rich, coming from the man who showed up half dead with a bullet graze. Ethan's mouth twitched. Point taken. There was a rhythm growing between them, small, sharp exchanges that kept fear from taking over the room. Humor did not erase danger. It just made it possible to breathe. Ethan tried to stand. His knee protested immediately. He gripped the edge of the table, jaw tight. Lila stepped close, not touching yet. Don't fight your body, she said. Work with it. Ethan let out a slow breath and adjusted his stance. He rose, careful and controlled, and took 2 steps. The third step wobbled. Ranger lifted his head, ready, but Ethan steadied himself before the dog could move. Lila watched him with that same calm focus she used on wounds. You've done rehab, she said. Ethan nodded once. More than once. He did not say where. He did not say why. The quiet in his eyes said enough. Lila handed him a mug of broth. Sit, she ordered, as if it were a kindness disguised as a command. Ethan obeyed. That, too, told her something. A dangerous man did not follow directions from a stranger. A disciplined man did. They moved through the day like that. Lila split kindling. Ethan mended a loose hinge on the back door, working slowly with borrowed tools. Ranger watched every corner of the cabin, every shift in sound, as if he could read the woods the way other dogs read a scent trail. In the afternoon, Lila brought out Ethan's damp flannel shirt from the first night, now dry but still stained at the shoulder. "This was expensive once," she said, holding it up. "Not the shirt, the stitching. Whoever made this cared." Ethan stared at it like it belonged to another man. "I don't know where it came from." "You don't remember anything?" Lila asked. Ethan's eyes narrowed, searching the fog inside his head. "Pieces. Not enough." He hesitated, then added, "Headlights. Water. A shout. Then nothing." Lila's face softened for a moment. "That's more than nothing." Ethan looked at her. "Why do you live out here?" Lila's hands stilled on the fabric. She did not answer right away. Silence stretched, full but not uncomfortable. Then she said, "Because it's quiet." She tried to make it sound simple. It was not. Ethan waited. He did not push. That restraint made her trust him more than any promise could have. Lila exhaled. "My parents died a few years ago," she said. "Fever swept through town. I stayed. They didn't." Her voice tightened on the last words. "I tried living around people after. It felt like drowning." Ethan's gaze lowered. "I'm sorry." Lila gave a small shrug, but her eyes betrayed her. "Out here, the memories don't sneak up on me. They stand in the open. I can handle that." Ethan nodded slowly, as if he understood too well. His voice was quieter. "Sometimes the quiet is the only place you can hear yourself." Lila's mouth lifted in a faint, almost unwilling smile. "Listen to you. All poetic." Ethan looked at Ranger. "Don't tell anyone." Ranger did not move, but his eyes seemed to say he already knew. That night, the wind sharpened again. Snow tapped the roof like restless fingers. Lila lit 2 lamps and set them by the windows. She didn't say she was afraid. She didn't have to. Ethan sat in the chair closest to the door, navy coat on now, flannel visible at the collar, as if armor could be made of cloth and habit. Ranger lay at his feet, service dog vest still on, gaze fixed on the crack beneath the door. Lila checked the lock twice, then went to the stove. "You can sleep in the bed," she said, trying to sound casual. "I'll take the chair." "No," Ethan said immediately. Lila turned. "You're injured." "And you're alone," Ethan replied. His eyes held that sharp seriousness now. "If someone comes, I need you behind me, not on the floor half awake." Lila stared at him, then gave a short laugh that carried no humor. "You really do think someone is coming?" Ethan did not answer. He didn't need to. Ranger's ears had lifted. A sound came from outside, faint, almost swallowed by the wind. Not the howl of weather, something mechanical. Ranger rose in a smooth motion, silent. His body angled toward the window, head tilted, listening. Ethan felt the hair on his arms lift beneath the flannel. His eyes went to the window, straining against the frost. The sound returned, clearer now. An engine, slow, idling, somewhere beyond the trees. Lila's face drained of color. "That's not a snowplow." Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Lights, stay off." Lila reached for the lamp instinctively. Ethan caught her wrist gently, firm without hurting. "Please," he said. "Trust me." Lila swallowed hard and nodded once. Ranger moved to the door, standing still, not barking, not growling. Just watching, waiting for a command. The service dog vest made him look like what he was: trained for chaos, built for restraint. Ethan shifted his weight carefully, knee protesting, and reached for the fireplace poker. It was not a weapon he wanted, it was the only one he had. Outside, the engine cut out. Silence rushed in so fast it felt like pressure.
Then, through the storm, a faint beam of light slid between the trees. Headlights searching, slow and deliberate, like someone taking their time. Lila's voice barely formed.
"Ethan, who are they?" Ethan stared at the moving light, and the fog in his head pulsed with a memory he could not catch. His jaw clenched, his eyes sharpened. "I don't know," he whispered. But in his bones, he did. Ranger's ears pricked forward. A boot crunched in the snow outside the cabin, and the doorknob turned, just slightly, testing.
Snow stopped falling, but the wind held its breath. Outside the cabin, the woods went unnaturally still, the kind of quiet that means something is listening back. The doorknob turned again, slower this time, as if the hand on the other side wanted Ethan to hear the decision being made. Ethan Cross rose from the chair with careful control. His left knee warned him, sharp and bright, but he kept his weight balanced. Navy winter coat on, red and black flannel visible at the throat, faded jeans, brown leather boots planted wide on the floorboards. He did not look like a man who wanted trouble. He looked like a man who knew what trouble looked like when it arrived. Ranger moved without noise, service dog vest snug across his black and tan frame, ears up, amber brown eyes locked on the door. Still not barking, still not wasting energy. Lila stood behind Ethan near the stove, her hands clenched around a small iron skillet like it could rewrite the laws of nature. Her gray-green eyes stayed on Ethan's back, trusting him and questioning him at the same time. A voice came through the wood, muffled but confident. "Open up! We're looking for someone." It was not a neighbor's voice, not the friendly roughness of a mountain town. This one had practiced sounding calm while people panicked. Ethan kept his voice low. "Stay behind me. Don't speak unless I ask." Lila whispered, "Who are they?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Ghosts." He stepped closer to the door, leaving a slice of space between himself and the handle. "Cabin's occupied," he called. "Move on." A short pause, then a soft laugh. "We can smell the fire. Don't make this hard." The handle stopped turning. A gentle knock followed, polite enough to be insulting. Ethan nodded once to Ranger. The dog held position, body angled, ready to move if Ethan moved. Then the voice changed, a shade colder. "Ethan Cross, that you?" Ethan's stomach dropped. He did not show it, only his eyes sharpened. Memory snapped into place like a trap closing. Not images, people. He opened the door 2 inches, chain still latched. Wind pushed snowflakes into the crack. Headlights from the trees threw pale light across Ethan's face. 3 men stood on the porch. The one in front was Caleb Rourke, early 40s, average height but built thick through the shoulders, hair cut close, a rough stubble beard, a small scar near his eyebrow. His eyes were a cold green blue that never softened, not even when he smiled. His dark coat was dusted with snow as if he'd been waiting a long time. Behind him, Derek Voss shifted his weight, big-bodied, neck thick, dirty blonde hair under a cap, a crooked nose like it had been broken more than once. His face held impatience and a kind of hunger for conflict, like he wanted this to turn ugly so he could feel powerful again. The third man, Owen Pike stood half a step back, taller and leaner, with tired gray eyes that kept flicking toward the trees and back to the cabin door. He looked like someone who had not slept well in weeks. His hands stayed near his pockets, not eager, not relaxed, just trapped. Caleb leaned closer to the crack in the door, voice smooth. "We've been worried. You disappeared. Your dog, too. We thought the mountain took you." Ethan's gaze stayed on Caleb's eyes. "You didn't come to check a trap line. You came to confirm a body." Caleb's smile thinned. Still sharp, even half frozen. Ranger's ears lifted higher. The dog's gaze fixed on Derek's hands, then Owen's, then back to Caleb, reading threat the way Ethan read tone. Caleb spoke again, softer. "Let's not do this in the cold. Unlatch the chain. We'll talk inside." Lila shifted behind Ethan, the skillet squeaking slightly against her grip. The sound was small, but it was enough. Caleb's eyes slid past Ethan's shoulder. He saw her. The smile returned, warmer now, false as a painted sunrise. "Well, look at that. You found yourself a guardian angel." Ethan kept his body between them. "Leave." Caleb's gaze hardened. "You always did love giving orders. Back when you were useful." That line hit Ethan like a punch to the ribs because it carried history. Not friendship. Control. Ethan's mind flashed to the reason he had left. The file he had refused to sign. The stolen shipment labeled as aid for veterans that never reached a single family. Money redirected. Weapons rerouted. Men who called themselves patriots while selling their souls. He had said no, and they had made sure no could be erased. Caleb's voice turned quiet, almost kind. "You know what you saw, Ethan. You know what you kept. Hand it over, and we walk away." Ethan's hand tightened around the fireplace poker behind his thigh. "I don't have anything." Caleb nodded slowly, like he was disappointed in a child. "Then we search." Derek stepped forward, boots grinding snow. The movement was aggressive, impatient. Owen hesitated, eyes flicking to Caleb as if asking permission to remain human. Caleb lifted a hand, and Derek stopped. "Not yet," Caleb said, eyes on Lila now. "We can do this the easy way." Lila's voice came out steady, surprising even herself. "There is no easy way when strangers show up at night with a truck in the trees." Caleb chuckled. "Smart. I like smart." Ethan felt the shift in the air. Caleb had noticed her strength. People like Caleb did not respect strength. They hunted it. Ethan spoke calmly, like he used to speak in places where calm kept people alive. "You take one step on my porch, and it gets loud. Sheriff loud." Caleb's gaze held a flicker of irritation. "You think the law will choose you over us?" Ethan did not answer. He did not have the luxury of certainty, only the luxury of posture. Caleb exhaled, then nodded toward Owen. "Check the windows." Owen's face tightened, but he obeyed, moving along the porch with careful steps. Ranger's body stiffened. Ethan felt it through the floorboards, the dog's quiet warning traveling up like electricity. Derek shifted his stance, eyes narrowing at Lila. "She gonna swing that pan at me?" Lila lifted her chin. "Try your luck." Derek's grin showed teeth. He liked fear. He hated when it wasn't offered. Then it happened. Derek's hand moved inside his coat. Not fully drawn, but enough.
The gesture was aimed at Lila, not Ethan, because men like Derek always looked for the soft spot. Ethan's knee screamed as he shifted. He started forward, but Ranger was faster. The German Shepherd launched from the cabin's warmth into the storm, a black and tan streak. No barking, no wasted sound, just action. Ranger slammed into Derek's legs, knocking him sideways, forcing his hand away from Lila. Derek cursed and stumbled. The weapon, whatever it was, never cleared the coat. Ethan yanked the door wider, chain snapping free as he moved. He didn't charge like an action hero. He moved like a man conserving pain, using angles, using timing. Caleb stepped in to react, but Ethan was already there, grabbing Caleb's wrist and twisting hard. The motion was clean and practiced, a reminder of training Ethan wished he didn't still own. Caleb grunted, surprised more than hurt. The fireplace poker pressed against Caleb's forearm, pinning him to the porch rail. "Enough," Ethan said, voice low. "You don't point at her." Caleb's eyes flared with rage, then cooled. He studied Ethan's limp, the tightness around the knee, and smiled again, smaller and meaner. "You're not the same man." Ethan leaned in, eyes dark and steady. "No, I'm worse for you now, because I'm not trying to protect your reputation anymore." Behind them, Ranger held Derek down without tearing at him, jaws close, control absolute. The dog's restraint was terrifying in a way violence never was. Owen froze near the window, hands raised slightly, eyes wide. He looked like a man realizing he had bet his life on the wrong table. Lila stood in the doorway, breath visible, skillet still in hand, eyes wet with fear she refused to surrender to. "Ethan," she whispered, "what do we do?" Ethan kept Caleb pinned, but his gaze flicked to Lila, softening for half a second. "You go inside. Lock it. Stay with Ranger if he comes back in." Caleb's voice dropped to a hiss. "This doesn't end here." Ethan met his stare. "I know." Wind surged, flinging snow between them like thrown ash. Ethan released Caleb with a shove that sent him back a step, not to harm him, but to draw a boundary. Caleb signaled Derek with a sharp nod. Derek scrambled up, furious, rubbing his shin. Ranger backed up, still silent, eyes on their hands. Caleb retreated into the storm with a promise in his posture. Owen followed last, looking back once at Lila, then at Ethan, as if apology was trapped in his throat. The truck engine started in the trees. Headlights swept away. The woods swallowed them whole. Ethan stood on the porch, chest rising slow, knee trembling under the coat, and watched the darkness where they disappeared. Lila stepped beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Ethan's voice was quiet, almost broken. "I'm sorry." Lila looked at him, then at Ranger, who returned to the doorway and sat like nothing had happened, still wearing the service dog vest, eyes watchful. Lila's mouth shook with a brave half-smile. "Don't be sorry yet," she said. "Be honest. Tell me what you're hiding, and tell me how we survive the next knock." Ethan stared into the storm, and for the first time he understood the cost of being found. Not for him, for the woman who chose to save him anyway. Morning arrived bright and cruel, sunlight glittering off fresh drifts as if the night had not tried to break the cabin. The air was so cold it felt clean enough to cut. Ethan Cross stood by the window, watching his own breath cloud the glass. Navy winter coat on, red and black flannel buttoned beneath it, faded jeans stiff from the stove's heat, brown leather boots planted wide for balance. His left knee still carried a dull, stubborn ache, but he had learned how to move around pain like it was furniture in a room he couldn't afford to leave. Behind him, Ranger sat near the door. 5 years old, black and tan, ears up, amber-brown eyes tracking every sound. A service dog in the truest sense. Not showy, not needy, just steady. Lila moved quietly through the cabin, packing what she could into a canvas bag. She didn't ask Ethan to explain the whole world. She asked for what mattered. "Tell me the truth," she said, tying the bag closed. "Not the heroic version, the useful version." Ethan turned from the window. His face was angular and tired, square jaw set beneath a trimmed beard with faint silver at the temples. His dark eyes softened when they landed on her, then sharpened again as if the softness might get them both killed. "The men last night," he said. "They weren't hikers. They were contractors. Guys who used to work the shadows." "And you used to be the one who stopped bad things," Lila said. He didn't correct her. He didn't accept it either. He simply nodded once, like a man carrying a heavy box he'd never asked to lift. "I found proof," Ethan continued. "Money meant for veterans' aid getting redirected. Weapons moving where they shouldn't. Paperwork made to look clean. I reported it. They decided the mountain could handle the mess." Lila's throat worked. "So they tried to erase you?" Ethan's gaze dropped to Ranger. They didn't count on him. Ranger's ears flicked, like he was listening to his name inside the sentence. Lila stepped closer. "What proof, Ethan? Because they didn't come here just to say hello." Ethan hesitated, then reached into the inside pocket of his navy coat. His fingers found something small and flat, wrapped in oilcloth, like a secret from an older century. He set it on the table. It was a thin metal tag, worn at the edges, the kind you'd expect on a key ring. Lila's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Ethan tapped it once. "Not a key." His voice stayed low. "It's a memory." He looked at Ranger and gave a small hand signal. Ranger rose, padded over, and stood close without crowding. Ethan slid 2 fingers under the dog's collar and felt along the underside with careful precision. Then, from a narrow pocket stitched behind Ranger's ID tag, he pulled out a tiny sealed capsule. Lila blinked. "You hid it. On him." Ethan's mouth tightened. "Because no one searches the dog when they think he's just an animal." Lila let out a breath that was half shock, half reluctant admiration. "That's smart. And also the most unfair thing I've ever heard." Ethan's eyes met hers. "He chose it. Ranger doesn't follow me out of obligation." Ranger leaned into Ethan's leg for a moment, a brief touch that felt like agreement. Inside the capsule was a sliver of paper, folded tight, and a small chip no bigger than a fingernail. Lila didn't need to understand technology to recognize desperation. "So what now?" she asked. Ethan's voice went steady. "Now we do the thing I didn't want to do." "Town," Lila said. Ethan nodded. "Doctor first, sheriff next." Lila's jaw set. "Then we go." They left in daylight, the safest kind of risk. Lila drove an older truck that sounded like it had opinions, and it expressed them loudly over every icy bump. Ethan sat passenger side, coat collar up, flannel visible, posture tense but controlled. Ranger stayed in the back, calm and watchful, eyes moving between the road and the mirrors. Lila glanced at Ethan's knee when he shifted. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough to hate it," Ethan replied. Lila huffed. "That's not a measurement.
It's the only one I've got. Despite herself, she smiled, small and quick, like a match struck in wind. They reached town by mid-morning. Boulder looked different under heavy snow, quieter, older, like the modern world had been temporarily put away. Lila parked near a modest clinic with frosted windows and a plain sign. Inside, warmth hit them along with the sharp smell of antiseptic. A man in his late 50s stepped out from behind a counter, Dr. Miles Harper. He was lean, hair silver and clipped short, wire-frame glasses riding low on a serious face. His eyes were kind but cautious, the look of someone who had learned that kindness without caution gets punished. "Lila Henderson," he said, relief softening his features. "Haven't seen you in a while." Lila nodded. "I didn't come for pleasantries, Doc." His gaze slid to Ethan, took in the worn boots, the stiff stance, the fatigue behind the eyes. "You look like you lost a fight with the weather." Ethan didn't smile. Weather wasn't the part that tried to finish the job. Miles stared for a beat, then motioned them into a back room without asking for more in the hallway. That alone told Lila he understood how small towns survive, by knowing when to close doors. Miles cleaned Ethan's shoulder, checked his lungs, tested his reflexes. He watched Ethan's face when he touched the left knee. "Old injury," Miles said quietly. Ethan nodded. "And new trouble," Miles added, voice lowering. "If someone followed you out of the mountains, you don't have time to pretend you're fine." Ethan placed the oilcloth bundle on the examination table. "I need a sheriff who still believes in law." Miles's eyes tightened. "You mean Sheriff Keene?" 10 minutes later, Sheriff Nora Keene walked in like winter itself. 44, dark hair pulled back tight, a weathered face with sharp, honest lines. Her brown eyes didn't wander. They pinned. Her presence filled the room without raising her voice. "Doc says you brought danger into my county," she said, looking at Ethan. "That true?" Ethan met her stare. "Yes, ma'am." Sheriff Keene's gaze shifted to Lila. "And you're the one who saved him." Lila didn't flinch. "Yes." Nora's expression stayed hard, but her tone held something like respect. "Then tell me why I shouldn't escort both of you out of town and lock my doors." Ethan slid the chip and folded paper toward her. "Because those men last night won't stop. And because this shows why." Nora didn't touch it at first. She studied Ethan's face like she was reading a statement without words. Then she picked it up, careful as if it might bite. "What am I looking at?" she asked. Ethan's voice stayed even. "Coordinates, names, transfers. Enough to make someone desperate." Miles leaned in, eyes narrowing behind his glasses. "This isn't small time." "No," Ethan said. "It's not." Sheriff Keene exhaled through her nose, the sound of a person choosing responsibility over comfort. "All right." She looked at Ethan. "You're going to tell me everything you know, start to finish. No hero stories." Ethan nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She looked at Lila. "And you're going to go home. Lock your doors. You'll have a deputy nearby." Lila's eyebrows rose. "A deputy?" Nora's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Don't make me repeat myself, Ms. Henderson." Lila glanced at Ethan, then at Ranger. "I'm not leaving him alone." Ethan's eyes softened. "Lila." She cut him off, voice steady. "You didn't leave me alone last night." That landed in the room like truth always does. Quiet, heavy, undeniable. Sheriff Keene watched them for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Fine.
but you follow my rules. Outside, the sun flashed off the snow like a warning. Inside, something shifted. Not safety, not yet, but direction.
Later that evening, after statements and calls and doors that closed behind uniforms, Lila and Ethan returned to the cabin with Ranger between them, the service dog's gaze steady as the North Star. Ethan stood by the stove while Lila set bowls on the table. The meal was simple, but the silence between them wasn't empty anymore. "I didn't mean to bring this to you," Ethan said at last. Lila stirred her soup, then looked up. "I know." He swallowed hard. "You could have let the storm take me." Lila's eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears win. "And you could have lied to me until I got hurt. You didn't." Ethan's face tightened with emotion he didn't like showing. "I wanted to disappear." "And now?" Lila asked. He glanced at Ranger, then back to her. "Now I want to be found by the right people." Lila's laugh came out soft and shaky. "Well, that's convenient. Because I'm tired of burying myself alive out here." Ethan's gaze held hers, warm now, not sharp. "You didn't save me because of who I was." "No," Lila whispered. "I saved you because you were there." Ranger exhaled and settled at Ethan's feet, calm again, as if the cabin finally understood it was allowed to breathe. Ethan reached across the table, slow, giving her every chance to pull away. When his hand covered hers, it wasn't possession, it was permission. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in second chances. Leave a comment with what you would have done in Lila's place, and subscribe for more stories where courage shows up in the cold. Sometimes a miracle does not arrive with thunder. Sometimes it comes as a quiet knock of grace in the middle of a storm, when a stranger chooses mercy and a loyal dog chooses courage. Emma did not know the man's name, his past, or the danger chasing him. She only knew one simple truth that many people forget in everyday life. A life in front of her mattered. In that moment, it felt like God's hand was not forcing anything, but gently inviting her to do what was right. And when she said yes, the miracle did not just save a man. It restored two hearts that had been living in the cold for too long. That is how faith often works in real life. It is not always a perfect answer. It is a next step. It is choosing patience when you are tired, choosing kindness when you are scared, choosing to help when no one is watching. A warm bowl of soup, a door opened at the right time, a prayer whispered while the world is silent. Small things that become big, because God can use ordinary hands to do extraordinary good. If this story touched you, please share it to spread kindness. Comment and tell us about a miracle you have seen in your own life. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of hope, courage, and second chances. May God bless you and keep you safe.